Awesome. There we go. I am so excited. I've got my friend Paul Martinelli. So thank you for joining Relentless Courage live chat. And I just want to take a moment to introduce Paul Martinelli. He's an internationally acclaimed speaker, trainer, mentor, and coach who truly believes that if you can dream it, you can do it. And while most people know Paul as the founding president and current lead faculty member of the John Maxwell team, what they don't know is that he was actually a high school dropout who overcame a stuttering disability, and he went on to share the stage with some of the biggest names in leadership and personal development. Names such as John Maxwell, Seth Godin, Jack Canfield, Wayne Dyer, and so many more. Just super impressive. Paul was raised by a single mother in a Pittsburgh lower class family. And in the late 1980s, with just $200, a used vacuum, and a dream, he founded a small commercial cleaning company in South Florida. Oh boy, do we have to talk about that. You've got so much in common with my mom. It's so great. He combined smart sales tactics with personal development teachings and propelled his business to unbelievable heights. Just 15 years later, he sold his commercial cleaning company to pursue his passion and purpose of teaching people how to achieve success in their own lives. His awareness and ability to apply the success strategies and principles that he has learned and taught to others led Paul's success in life and business, including building 5 multi-million-dollar companies. I am so excited, Paul. This is just so valuable, and I'm so grateful that you are here today.
Thank you, Dana. I'm honored to be here, and I am just so excited for your book. I don't read a lot, and when I do read, I read really slow, one word at a time, and I couldn't stop. I was on a vacation, and I started to read your book, and I got a galley copy, so I got it before anybody else, and I started to read it, and I couldn't stop. And it was so powerful. And I just said to my fiance, Holly, I just said, everybody needs this book. Everybody needs this book. It is so powerful. And so when you asked me to be on the podcast, I immediately said yes. So thank you.
Oh, I'm so grateful. And I want to take a minute to thank you because you had called me. I remember, I will never forget the email that I got and the phone call telling me how much you related to the book and how important you thought it was. Based on your own childhood, and you donated $5,000 for me to purchase books for donation to people in need. And I just can't tell you, my whole team was just dumbfounded. So I'm so grateful to you. And you were also responsible for getting us our bonus speaker for this weekend.
Isn't that great? It's so good. Well, you're welcome for the donation. I'm glad to do it because I know that you're going to get the book in the hands of the right people. And I know you're going to get them in the hands of the right people. And for the right person, this book can change their life. It can give them hope. And sometimes it's, when somebody's in a dark place, a minute or an hour or half a day or a day to just have some hope is all they need. Yeah. So.
Oh, I totally agree. And Joseph, you got us Joseph McClendon. It's just so great.
He is so good. I was with him Sunday. I know he just did your show, and I was with him Sunday. He is if you haven't registered for this event, you've got to register for this event. It is going to be epic. And I cannot imagine a better use of your time for a couple of hours. If you want to grow yourself and know yourself, you've got to tune into this event. It's going to be really powerful.
I love that. I'm so excited. So yeah, it's going to be this Saturday, 9:30 Pacific, and it's at tanaamon.com/event. If you haven't signed up, it's free, and we've got amazing speakers. But I want to ask you, Paul, when you contacted me, you said you couldn't stop reading it. It was hard for you to read this book at certain points because of your own childhood. So I'm just a little curious. Anyone who sees you by today's standards, we've been working with you for a while, and you are highly successful. You're a super high level thinking person. You've helped us a tremendous amount. And I'm reading here that you dropped out of high school and you talk about trauma in your life. So what part of my book did you relate to? Where did you come from?
Yeah. So I was raised by a single mom. My dad left the family when my mom was 3 months pregnant with me. And my mom was just, my mom was a rageaholic. I don't
Mm.
know how else to say it. She was just really, she was verbally, physically, emotionally abusive. I can remember going to school in third grade with fat lips and black eyes.
Oh,
And back then, you know, it wasn't as, the level of awareness wasn't the same. And, if she, had I gone to school now, she would have been arrested. But it was the home of my upbringing was not a safe place. It was a violent home. And I developed a terrible stutter, and it was my way of just internalizing the anxiety. I was afraid to speak. And I can remember just, in your book, there was an unpredictability, right? Of
yeah.
just this level of unpredictability, a lack of certainty. And most people who don't grow up in that kind of an environment don't understand. You can't put your finger on it, but it is the walking on eggshells. It's the not knowing what's around the next corner. Imagine just every single day as you're walking through life, people jumping on going boo, but you're 3 years old, and so I can remember, from the smallest time coming home from lunch midday and not knowing who was going to be on the couch when I got there, not knowing if I was going to be hugged and kissed or if I was going to be, hit with the pressure cooker lid.
Mm.
And so I identified, so much of your book validated the emotional roller coaster, that unpredictability, that uncertainty that people who face abuse live through.
Wow. Yeah, no, you just nailed it. It's like you never know what's around the corner. I've often described it as I've always felt like there was going to be a tiger that jumped out from around every corner. And
Yeah.
I wouldn't bring friends home because I just didn't know what to expect.
Oh yeah, you would never. Yeah, I would never ever bring a friend into the house because you would never know. And my mom was one of those. One of her go-to strategies was to kind of the takeaway. So Christmas Eve, take down the Christmas tree.
Oh, no,
An hour,
no.
an hour before your birthday, call your friends and tell them the party's canceled. That kind of stuff. And I learned just to go inward. And I developed a level of self-reliance. Now I'm so grateful for this now. I'm so grateful this now. I'm on the other side. But I you don't trust anybody. I could not trust anybody. I had no trusted adults. One of the foundations for childhood stability is there a trusted adult? It doesn't even have to be a parent. I
Right.
had no trusted adult. I was afraid to tell a teacher that I was being abused. I was afraid to tell the priest where I was an altar boy at the Catholic Church. I wouldn't speak a word. I wouldn't tell cousins or grandparents, because I was threatened if I did. And so yeah, and so your book just validated so much of my childhood, and it was really tough because, as this energy never goes away.
Mm-mm.
This is a tough time for me. This time of year, typically, I'll see a mom with a 5-year-old boy at a mall, and I'm just
Mm.
reminded of what I didn't have, right? And I'll see that. And forgiveness is one of those things you've got to do 70 times 7. It's an ongoing thing. This energy is neither created nor destroyed. It's there forever. And I think what someone who reads your book will learn to do is be able to transmute that energy. And that's the
Mm.
best we can hope for, is to be able to transmute it. And your book, I think, really gives somebody a navigational pathway to transmute the energy that is dysfunction into something that allows you to have hope.
Wow. Thank you so much. That's such a special thing coming from you. And you talk about, it's like you're so articulate. You speak on these big stages. You've helped people build massive brands besides your own very successful businesses. But you talk about having a stuttering disorder when you were younger. Did you develop that? Do you think that was an anxiety reaction? And how
Oh,
did you overcome it?
yeah, absolutely was. I mean, neurologically, very few children stutter because of an issue. So now I still stammer, but it was so bad, Tana. I mean, I like that's how I was,
Yeah.
and it was all fear. It was
Right.
just anxiety, and so I always did from the time I was kindergarten until I failed out of school in 10th grade. I say I dropped out, but I failed out. I was in speech, therapy classes, and I still stuttered all the way through. And it wasn't until I started to grow as an entrepreneur and I began to do forgiveness work. God put an
Mhm.
angel in my life. God put an angel when I was 24 years old. I was cold calling, selling my cleaning services, and I walked into this guy's office, and his name was Patrick Hayes, and he offered to mentor me. He gave me a copy of the book, Think and Grow Rich. And he said, I'm going to take you through the book word by word, line by line, page by page. And he did. And he worked with me for a while and I got stuck, right? And I couldn't get out of my way. So he said, I want you to go talk to this guy. And it was a Lutheran minister. I'm thinking, a Lutheran minister. So I go down and here it was, the guy was a psychiatrist. And so I'm there telling him about all my business problems. And I'm getting perturbed because the guy's not writing anything down. I'm giving him great stuff and he's just sitting there. And so when I was all done, 45 minutes in, he says, well, who do you think you need to forgive? And the mask part of me said, what do you mean? What are you talking about? But I knew exactly what he meant. This guy had just pierced me, and I didn't realize that I was so full of resentment.
Mhm.
And he taught me something that I know, Est has taught, Sci Seminars has taught, LifeSpring, so many have taught, is that, there's a program we all run. We run it every single day. It's how we operate. And it's the most destructive program if we don't put it in check. It's the number one cause of disease. It's the number one cause of divorce. It's the number one cause of bankruptcy. It's called the 3 R's: resentment, resistance, revenge. And
Mm.
so, resentment is any negative emotion towards any person, place, thing, condition, circumstance, thought, or idea. Think about that, including
Yeah.
ourselves and those who are dead. And if you're in resentment, if you don't heal that, you go right to resistance. Resistance is the withdrawal or withholding of any of your God-given skills, talents, abilities, or resources.
Mm.
And if you don't heal that, you move right to revenge, where you try to, get even with the source of your resentment. And so I was so full of resentment against my mother. And he said to me, he said, well, you don't think, I remember, he said, you don't think it's possible that you're stuck in one area of your life and you're not stuck in every area of your life.
Oh.
Do you? And as he said that, I remembered you telling me, I remember your story of being asked, what are you going to be responsible for, right? The responsibility question. It was just like right in your heart, right? You were just like, oh, that got me, right? That's like a kidney punch. And that's what happened for me, I realized I needed to let this go. I'd been dragging the dead with me, and hoping to tiptoe safely to death. And yeah, and that when I let go of the resentment, the stuttering problem began to go away. And
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
But that's another part of your story. When you talk about, I'm not responsible for cancer. I just love
Right.
that. Just love that. So good. Yeah.
My favorite word. Responsibility to this day is my favorite word. The ability to respond, not take blame.
It's a powerful part of the book, and you set it up so great, the story, because the story is real, right?
Right.
Yeah. If you guys haven't gotten this book, you got to get this book. You got to get this book, and you've got to be there Saturday. I'm telling you, you got to be there Saturday. But yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And so you then drop out of high school in 10th grade?
Yeah, right after 10th grade. When I go back to 11th grade, they call me in and say, yeah, you're done. You don't stand a chance of making it.
Okay, that's just crazy. My mom was a high school dropout. But that's amazing that you managed to, well, I would say that about my mom too. I mean, she's one of the toughest people I know. For her to retire as wealthy as she did and be as successful as she is,
Right.
after being a high school dropout and living on the streets.
Yeah.
So how did you do that? I mean, that's just crazy.
I had always been an entrepreneur. So, I was always the kid that shoveled your snow, raked your leaf. If I was knocking on your door, right? I delivered the morning paper, I delivered the afternoon paper. I sold light bulbs door to door. Down in Pittsburgh, where I grew up, there's a strip district where the three rivers come together. I sold peanuts in the strip district there. So I was always a hustler. And so when I failed out of school, I got a dead end job as a roofer. And I was patrolling with the Guardian Angels, the guys who wear the red berets out of New York City. So I'd studied martial arts for a number of years. So like you, I'd worked in martial arts for a number of years. And I moved to Florida, and while patrolling with the Guardian Angels, I saw people coming out of buildings at night, and they were the janitorial staff. And I thought, you know what? I can do. I'm smart enough that I can clean toilets. Any dummy can clean the toilet, and I'm any dummy. I was still trapped in this low self-image, and so, I took $200 and started the cleaning company, and that's really what kind of moved me into kind of that first next step into kind of beginning to believe myself. And then when Patrick gave me the book Think and Grow Rich, and for the first time in my life, I had somebody look at me and tell me that they believed in me, and I believed that they did, right?
Wow.
And I was afraid to read the book. I had never read a book. I could read, but I had never read a book cover to cover. And what scared me was the title, Think. I equated thinking you had to be smart, and I wasn't smart. And then Grow Rich. And I had been programmed that, rich people were bad, right? The only way people got ahead, in my family, anybody who accumulated anything good, fell off the back of a truck. You know what I mean? And so I had associated that if you were ever going to do something good, you had to do something bad to other people. And so Patrick, the interesting thing is, after a couple of years of reading the book, I became a millionaire. And most people never do that in their lives, let alone in maybe 2.5 years. But Patrick never taught me what to think. He taught me how to think.
Right.
And nobody teaches you how to think and how to process information, how to think beyond our conditions and circumstances, right? How to use our intellectual faculties of intuition and reason and memory and will and perception and imagination, and be able to create as God intended us to create beyond conditions and circumstances, to live our birthright of dominion over all things. And that's really, I think, Patrick gave me a philosophy of thinking, an understanding of how we think, a process to run a track on that I could take a dream on and follow it. And I've never looked back since.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And wow, that does actually remind me some of my mom. My mom's first business was janitorial, commercial janitorial. And so she ended up driving 18 wheelers and doing all kinds of things before she finally, but like you, she started numerous businesses and just never took no for an answer.
Yeah. I love that part of the book, your mom's story, all the way. She's the hero in the book. I mean, just love
right.
it.
Right. And so, her grit, we had our issues because she's a, high school dropout who was determined to make it, which meant she wasn't home a lot. And so there were issues with that, but I never doubted my mom's love. There were all sorts of other things that went on in my house that were really, really challenging, partially because she wasn't there, but I never doubted her love. And I think that's the one place that we sort of have a difference in our story. But the trauma and some of the chaos was very similar. Sure. And so, I applaud you for where you've come as a result. It's really inspiring.
So many people have lived a version of that story. I can't tell you. And I never talked about the abuse. I just wrote a book this year was published. I wrote the 3 missing chapters to the book Think and Grow Rich. I've taught probably 250,000 people that book cover to cover because it changed my life so much. I teach it for free every year.
I love that book.
Yeah, it's so great. Yeah. But I wrote 3, I thought there's 3 chapters missing. One is, I don't think you can get rich without forgiveness. I don't think you can get rich without understanding tithing. And I don't think you can get rich without understanding conditional love, true riches. So I wrote 3 chapters on that. And it was the first time I just started to talk about my story this year. Part of it was to protect my mom and my siblings. But now it just felt like now's the right time to tell the story. And I cannot tell you, I've taught a lot of people success strategies. I've helped people make a lot of money. Pales in comparison to the letters I get from people who say, I was a child, and this story or this, because I teach a process of forgiveness for people, because forgiveness is tough to do. And if you're not taught something, if you're not taught how to do it, it's really tough. getting you forget true forgiveness is it's you're never done, right? It's a
Right.
lifetime thing. And so that has been a really rewarding part of my journey now, is now telling the story, and that's why I think you telling your story, I was so proud of you as you told the story, because I thought, wow, this is gutsy to tell this story. It's courageous.
It's one thing if people criticize your business techniques or your nutrition information. It's a whole different thing if they criticize your life. But I don't know if you felt like this, Paul. At first I was really a little nervous about it, and I was like, okay, how is this going to go? But all of a sudden, after it was done, and I started to get some of those notes like you're talking about, and they really do sort of feed your soul when people benefit from what you've said. I started to feel sort of impervious to criticism. I'm like, it doesn't really matter. It's not their job to love me. It's not my job. I wasn't put here to be popular. That wasn't my purpose on the planet, was to be popular. It was to make a difference. And after getting it all out, it just sort of stopped worrying me about what people would think.
Wow. Yeah. It's liberating, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
It really is. So I don't know if it's too long of a process, but can you give us an idea of what your forgiveness technique looks like?
Yeah, I think it's the consideration of three ideas, really. And number one is you have to separate the being from the behavior, right? None of these are earth shattering, but a 5-year-old who spills milk, was clumsy. They aren't clumsy.
Right.
Right. And so the person who steals, they stole something that doesn't define who they are, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so can you separate the being from the behavior, right? Can you get to a place where you recognize at a level of awareness that every single person, every single day is doing the same thing? You're doing this today. I'm doing this today. We're trying to get our needs and our wants met at our highest level of awareness of doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Period, end of story, right? And so, some people are at a lower level of awareness,
Mm-hmm.
and how they get their needs met is at a low level of awareness. And if you can get that around your head, then you can move to compassion. You can feel sorry for the thief. You can feel sorry for a woman who the best way that she can get through her day is to beat her children. The best way that she's equipped, the best resource she has available. Now, I'm not saying she doesn't know better. She knows much better, but she lacks the awareness to express what she knows. And so how many of you have an extra 10 pounds around your waist and you know how to lose it, right? But you don't do what you know. I don't know about you, but the biggest gap in my life is the gap between what I know to do and should do and do, right?
So true.
So it's a difference between, so knowing and having the awareness to do what we know are two different things. And what I'm saying is everybody's doing the very best that they're aware of being able to do. They may know better, but they lack the awareness to export what they know. And so if you can imagine the guilt that, because at some point everybody has done something wrong. And I don't know about you, but when I do something wrong later at night, I'm riddled with guilt. There's conversations I've had in this last week that I'll replay in my head thinking, oh, I should never have said that. I said that the wrong way. I wish I could do it. Could you imagine the shame or guilt that my mother had to go to bed with every single night? Because that was the very best level. So can I move to a place of compassion, separating the being from her behavior? So it's entering the consideration of that. The second is recognizing that you don't know the whole story. You just don't know. And the way I teach this is have you grown in awareness of your capability, potential in the last month, in the last week, in the last 6 months? And if you have, then you don't even know your whole story.
Right.
You're still writing I'm still writing my story. And so I don't know her whole story. I know my version of her story. And what I didn't realize is, my mother was born in 1932. My grandfather came to this country in 1909. When he had my mother, he had two boys and Catherine. Well, she was a girl in a true Italian family.
Mm,
So it was not uncommon for, her to be smacked in the face by her brothers at dinner time.
right.
While brothers were treated like, gods, she was tied in the basement at times.
Mm.
My grandfather was abusive to her. And so this is what she learned.
Well, and
And
didn't she also then go through the Great Depression?
absolutely,
Oh,
1932. So you
right.
think about and so what I teach is the person who's at the highest level of awareness has the responsibility for a relationship, period. And your book proves that, right?
Oh,
Right? The person who has the highest level of awareness is responsible for the relationship, period. End of story. It has nothing to do with age. It has nothing to do with income. It has nothing to do with education, awareness, right?
that's
And
wild.
so,
So my sister, I got so frustrated with her. I mean, I write about this in my book because, your journey to evolving is not always a straight line, right? We have our moments of falling down. So even after I'd gotten my life together, and my sister, we have so much addiction in our family and mental health challenges, and she, she lost my nieces. They went into foster care. And so Daniel and I had to get involved, and we were working to get my nieces out, and she just couldn't, she couldn't keep it together. And so I was so frustrated with her. I was just so beyond frustrated. I don't have patience with addiction. I'm much more so now, but it was her. She taught me this one thing. And she said, she was crying, and I was sort of disconnecting from her at one point, just like I do best. And she said, I'm so much more than my addiction. And it just sort of hit me. And I thought, I've been treating her the same way that I've been labeling people with addiction for so many years, addicts or junkies. Like so if I'm calling them addicts or junkies, how am I ever going to see them as anything more?
wow.
And so she really slapped me in the face with that one. And I realized, we have to watch our language.
Yeah.
And you're so right. Her awareness, for whatever reason, isn't the same as mine, although she did teach me that.
Yeah.
But if I have the higher level of awareness, I mean, we jumped in, we sort of rescued our nieces, but I would get so frustrated with her because I'm like, you don't have the right to do that if you're a mother. But the truth is, she probably just couldn't do better.
Yep. She was doing the very best she could at her level of awareness to get her needs and her wants met.
Right.
Weird. And the only thing you can do is elevate someone's awareness.
Yeah.
That's key, right? Awareness is the name of the game, right?
That was so helpful. That was
Uh,
so good.
yeah. Well, thank you. And so, and then the last principle is look, if you can't do number one or number two, you have to answer this question. Are they sentenced to a life sentence? Right? I mean, do they get life in jail for this or whatever? Right? Do they get a life sentence? And is that yours to carry?
Mm.
Does God need your help on this one?
Oh, that's so interesting.
Right? Because if not, well, then give to God's what's God's, and pick up your mat and go, right? But if it's not, then don't stay. Pick up your mat and go, and you have to make a decision if this is truly your burden to carry, and if it's not, then you need to give it to God. And so you have to pick one of those. You have to pick one or two, number one or number two. And if not, then you got to go to number three. And if not, then you have to answer the question, well, then how much longer do I intend to punish myself?
Yep.
Right. How much longer am I going to continue to, hit myself with a hammer and complain about my thumb hurting? Right.
That's so interesting. I love that. So when I read about this other thing in my book, is my self-loathing at one time was so intense. I couldn't stand myself.
Wow.
And so, and I couldn't let go of certain things. And I remember someone looking at me and saying, why are you choosing to hold on to what God has chosen to forget and forgive? So that's arrogance. And I was like, whoa, like that's true. Like, am I that so above God that I can choose to hold on to something that has already been forgiven?
Yeah.
It was really interesting to me.
It's just so powerful, right? I mean, this is why I love what you're doing Saturday, is you're creating a space for people to come and know themselves.
Mm.
I mean, when somebody spends 2 hours at this event, they're going to walk away knowing themselves just a little bit more. Just a little bit more. They're going to have a little bit more of an insight. They're going to understand what makes them tick. They're going to have a higher level of awareness. They're going to understand what motivates them. They're going to understand that they're going to learn a gateway to a resource that they didn't even know they have. And so the best investment, and I mean, you're giving this for free. It's unbelievable. The best investment we can make is an investment of our time to learn more about me, to learn more about yourself. That, know thyself. There's a reason why it's carved in stone. Know thyself. And so I think, what you're doing this weekend is just so powerful. And what a gift to the world. What a gift to the world.
I'm so grateful for your contribution. I mean, you really helped our team sort of, rally and get it together. And we love that, because just like you, I think it's what brought us together. Being purposeful is what makes us feel good. It's sort of the money for us, right? It's just, there's this, when you help people in a certain way, it makes you feel good in a way that nothing else really does. And so it's right now during this time, the stories that we get, just people, these are unprecedented times. People are hurting. But one thing we try to tell people is, right now you got to discipline your thoughts more than ever. And you don't need to give in to every stupid thought you have. And one of the ways you do that is to constantly surround yourself. The people you spend time with matter, because people are contagious. And that's why going to events like this, Daniel calls me a seeker. I used to love, obviously we haven't been able to go to any sort of seminar for a while. I love seminars, not because I think there's going to be this one magic thing that's going to happen, that's going to change everything for me, that's different than the last 10 seminars I went to. It's because there's a magic that happens. There's a magic that happens when people come together with the same purpose, and it's positivity, as opposed to everything going on in the world around you. You get to sort of set that aside, learn, and be around people who are, with positive intentions. And I just think it's powerful.
You are so spot on. If you think about it, for the last, 6,000 years of recorded history, all the great thinkers, philosophers, theologians, industrialists have told us that we become what we think about. Mm-hmm. And that, our thoughts are energy, and everything in the universe is energy. And our thoughts are connected energetically to everything. That they can become magnetized to a pandemic or CNN constant negative news, or just as easily tune into something that is positive, that is life-giving, that is reinforcing, that is edifying, that is encouraging, that is uplifting, that is hope-giving, right? And our greatest gift is our ability to choose, right? Yes. Our ability to choose. When you look at Viktor Frankl's phenomenal work in Man's Search.
One of my favorites.
Just why, right? When he says, between stimulus and response lies our greatest power, right? Our ability to choose our own attitude, our ability to choose our thinking, our thoughts. And so, when you place yourself intentionally in an environment conducive to growth, like you're holding the space, you're creating the space, all of the energy and I know the energy that you and your team, and I know the love that you and your team have put into this. You have created this space. And when someone intentionally enters that space, they may not understand every word that's spoken. They may not understand every single concept. They may only be there for a short period of time, but truth resonates, yep. Right? The truth of who you are will resonate in that moment. And the truth sets you free every single time.
It's so true. Yeah. It's so true.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful for you, Paul. You are just amazing. And I'm so looking forward to this weekend, and hopefully you'll be logged on with us.
Oh, I absolutely will.
You're going to bring our friend, Joseph.
I'm just so glad that you guys connected. I think it's going to be great. I can't wait to see.
Oh, he's a kick in the pants. He's so great. Literally, he will kick you in the pants. He's so great.
So just give me the lineup. I know it's yourself and Daniel and Joseph. Is Carolyn Leaf in this?
Carolyn Leaf is part of it. So we're working on the 4 circles. There's biological, psychological, social, and spiritual. So how your life works, how your mind works, who you're hanging out with, because it matters, and your spiritual circle, which is what gives your life meaning and purpose. So based on that, that's how we chose the speakers. So we've got Carolyn Leaf. She's talking about the mind, managing your mind. We've got JJ Virgin. She's going to be talking about food and how that affects your thinking. We've got Derwin Gray, who I just love. He's a minister who's an ex-NFL player, and he's got also a story of trauma and how he has overcome, and he's just outstanding. And we've got Joseph, and we've got Daniel. It's a pretty wild
lineup.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
This is so good. Well, I'm so excited for you. I know myself and everybody in the Empowered Living community. We're registered and we are excited. We're stoked for this.
So well, thank you so much. And I'm just, like I said, I'm so grateful. How can people find you?
You can find me just paul@paulmartinelli.net.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah, that's my
wonderful
website.
And you are an expert at building brands. I don't think we said that, but you are an expert at building brands as well.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
No, you really are. You helped us with our PBS show. And every time we got off a call with you, I was just like, I was high because I'm like, wow, those guys are really high level thinkers. So I was just really, really proud that we could work with you. And so I appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Tana. Thank you so much for having me again. Congratulations on the book.
Oh, thank you so much, Paul. I'm so grateful.
Right on. Be well. God bless.
Have a great day.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, so now I have to figure out how to log off of here. Hold on a second here. I know I can do this.